afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is a great crowd for a late afternoon in November, so I really appreciate all of you coming out. And I think we have a fabulous afternoon planned. I wanted to start by thanking the various units on campus that have supported this visit. The Dean's Office of the College of Arts and Sciences, Low Library, and I'd also like to extend extra thanks to Mary Larson, Associate Dean at the OSU Library, and Mikkel Martinelli, who is our GTA for the Digital Humanities Initiative. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Borland. I'm the Director of the Digital Humanities Initiative, and I also am an art history professor in the Department of Art, Graphic Design, and Art History. The Digital Humanities Initiative at OSU began in the spring of 2016 as a response to increasing interest on the part of faculty, staff, and students in various departments, the library, and other entities on campus. And our activities focus around the exchange of ideas through a wide range of events, including a visiting speaker series, symposia, workshops, reading groups, and other opportunities. And our primary goal has been to create a community of scholars and educators interested in exploring new possibilities for our research and teaching in the humanities. I wanted to give you some information if you want to get on our email list or check out our somewhat new website. You can find us at digitalhumanities.okstate.edu. And you can also, if there's a few flyers, I think, back in the corner with our Twitter handle and some email contacts. But if you go to that website, you can also find my email there. And if you contact me, I can add you to our email list, which would get you information on upcoming events. Tomorrow, although it was a pre-registration workshop, we have a workshop with Dot Porter, and we probably could accommodate a couple of other people. So if anyone was hoping to sign up for that workshop, 9:30 to 11 tomorrow morning here at the library, and you didn't register, let me know, and I'll see if we have room. And our next event after this week will be kind of the last event for the semester, where we will have a social hour at the stateroom in the Atherton on Wednesday, December 4th from 5 to 6. So this is really just an opportunity to check in with projects that other people are doing, see how their semester's gone. Often when we have our regular meetings, we don't really get a chance to kind of talk to each other and find out what we're working on. So that's really the goal of this last event, is to not have a program for the event and just get together and talk about projects and talk about what we're doing for the next semester. So next semester, we have a number of events that are being finalized as we speak. So again, if you want to check our website, our Twitter, email me, all of those are options to find out more about what we're doing in the upcoming months. I would like now to introduce our speaker, Dot Porter. She is a curator of digital research services in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies at the University of Pennsylvania. And she participates there in a wide range of digital humanities research and development with a team that is focused on thinking about the context of special collections and working within a department that focuses on manuscripts specifically. Her projects include or focus on the digitization and visualization of medieval manuscripts. She holds a master's degree in medieval studies and another master's degree in library science. And she started her career working on image-based digital editions of medieval manuscripts. She has worked in a variety of digital humanities projects over her decade-long career. She was previously the Associate Director for Digital Library Content and Services at the Indiana University Bloomington Libraries, where she led the planning and implementation of new services to support librarians and faculty in the creation of digital projects. She has also worked for the Digital Humanities Observatory at the Royal Irish Academy and the Collaboratory for Research in Computing for Humanities at the University of Kentucky. And the work that Dot and her colleagues are doing at the University of Pennsylvania is really remarkable, especially this group that is associated with the Schoenberg Institute. They have led the way not just in the digitization of medieval manuscripts and other early printed books, but they have done so with the express purpose of sharing their collections, of making them accessible, adaptable, and understandable for as wide a range of audiences as possible. They collaborate with other libraries, for instance, including the Free Library of Philadelphia, the city's public library system. And they have been on the forefront of this trend, both the digitization trend, but also the trend to reach out to wider audiences. And I look forward to seeing what they're going to be doing in the future. And in fact, today, Dot's presentation is focused on one of those very large Philadelphia-wide projects that she has been involved in. Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis is a recently completed CLIR-funded project to digitize and catalog 475 medieval and Renaissance manuscripts from Philadelphia area institutions. To celebrate the project, she's curating an exhibition in spring 20 at the Free Library of Philadelphia. So in her talk today, she will introduce that project and discuss the plan for the exhibition, which has the aim of bringing medieval manuscripts closer to a modern audience. And the title of her paper today, or lecture, Reflections, Modern Mirrors of Medieval Life, or the Medieval Manuscripts in Philadelphia and Why They Matter Today. So please join me in welcoming Dot Porter.
Thank you. Hi. Should I turn off this microphone, or is this okay? Okay. All right, so thanks everybody for coming out today. Thank you, Jennifer, for inviting me and for taking care of me. I've had a really great visit so far this morning. I met with Jennifer's art history class, and that was really fun. That was a very sort of thinky talk. This talk is going to be a little bit less theoretical and more me sort of telling you about these projects that I've been working on that are very close to my heart. So, well, let's go ahead and get started. First, ooh, yes.
Oh no. I just want to remind everyone that there's a reception after her talk is over from 4:30 to 5. So please hang around if you can, get a brownie and a drink and chat it up with Dot. That's why we have the reception. So please stay around after we finish up with the talk. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, sure. All right. So as Jennifer said, I am a curator of special collections at the University of Pennsylvania. Most of my time I spend in this unit called the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies. It's named after Lawrence J. Schoenberg, who has been a supporter of the special collections, particularly manuscripts at Penn for a long time. So he also collected manuscripts, and when he passed away a couple of years ago, he gave his collection to Penn, and when that arrangement was being worked out, he said, I will give my manuscripts to, this is obviously before he passed away, I will give my manuscripts to Penn, and Penn will set up this institute to study manuscripts, both physical and digital. So he was very interested in digitization, and this is a lot of what we do. We digitize stuff, and so this is mostly what I'm talking about today. The specific project is Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis. If you want to know more about it, you can go to bibliophilly.library.upenn.edu. PACSCL is the Philadelphia area consortium of special collections libraries, and this was it's sort of the local group that organizes all of the special collections libraries in Philadelphia. We are full of wonderful collections, and so several years ago there was a major exhibition where a lot of these libraries got together and they displayed their manuscripts together. They had gallery shows, and that was really when they started having the idea, we should digitize all of these someday. Someday we'll do it. And so 3 years ago, we put together a proposal to the Council on Library of Information Resources, or CLIR, and they funded it. When we proposed it, I think our original proposal had slightly fewer manuscripts. I think we said we'd do 455, we ended up doing 475, and 1,700 leaves, which again is a little bit misleading, because a lot of those leaves are at the Free Library of Philadelphia, which Jennifer mentioned is the public library of Philadelphia. And they had already been digitized and already been cataloged and described, and so it was sort of taking those in. But most of the manuscripts we we did additional cataloging on those. A couple of notes on the scope. You always want to control your scope whenever you're doing a project like this. We had a very strong cutoff date of 1600, which is still pretty late. That's pretty late in what you call the Renaissance. But if there was anything that was dated even 10 years past that, we said no. And they're all from Western Europe, so primarily England, France, Germany, Spain, but nothing, and so generally Latin or the languages of those countries. We have a couple of Hebrew manuscripts that were written in Spain, no Arabic manuscripts though. So these were sort of the limitations of the project. There were 15 institutions that were involved in this project, and here's a little map. So you can see Philadelphia is where the big cluster is, right here. But you can see that PAC-SCOL includes institutions that are far out. So we have Franklin and Marshall out here. The University of Delaware is actually a member of PAC-SCOL. And then, although it wasn't included in the project, Princeton University, which is in New Jersey, sort of up here somewhere. So that's another one. So it was pretty focused geographical area, but not just right there, sort of further out. There's a lot of work involved in a project like this. It's not like you have a flatbed scanner and you're scanning them and they magically go online, right? A lot of people were involved in that. The University of Pennsylvania has been digitizing their manuscripts and their other materials since the mid-90s, which is very early. We were one of the first libraries to do this kind of work. And so all of our manuscripts were already done, and we already have a big lab. We have a big digitization lab in our basement. A lot of these other 15 institutions that were involved don't have their own labs. And so we ended up working out an agreement where the manuscripts would come to Penn, we would photograph them, we would catalog them, and then we would send them home. So we did a lot of work. Temple University has a digitization lab, so they did their own photography. Bryn Mawr did some of the photography both for their own collection and for Haverford's collection. So Bryn Mawr and Haverford are very close together, and they do a lot of collaborations. And then Lehigh University was too far away really to send their materials down. So they hired Backstage, which is a consultant group, to take the material and do their photography up there. So there was a lot of logistics just concerning getting the manuscripts where they needed to go to be photographed, and then the people doing that work. Most of the manuscripts had already been cataloged to some extent. That is, somebody sat down at some point and looked at it and said, here's where I think it's from, here's the text I think it is, here's the date that I think it is. And so we took all of that existing cataloging, and we for each manuscript, we gave it a spreadsheet. We used a lot of Google spreadsheets for this. So every manuscript got its own Google spreadsheet with the same fields, and it was mostly people at these institutions who sat down with their existing catalog, whether it was a printed thing or whether it was a website, and they sort of typed in, here's what we have. And then when the manuscripts came to Penn, those manuscripts that came to Penn, somebody from our cataloging group, which was myself, Nick Herman, who is our Sims curator of manuscripts, so he's really the person in the department who is the manuscript person. I'm like the weird digital person, and he's the real manuscripts person. Amy Hutchins, who is our manuscripts cataloger, so she actually catalogs all of our manuscripts, so she really knows her stuff. And then we had a few other people who came on and off. We had a postdoc, we had a graduate student who did some work, so other people who were doing this. We would sit down with the manuscript and compare it with the information that we got from the existing cataloging. So what kind of information would this be? It's things like, how big is it? We measured it. Each one, both the binding size, and then you open it up and you measure what you call the text block, which is just the paper or the parchment that's inside. by millimeters. So we did that. How many leaves does it have? And then more advanced things. So what are the texts in it? Is it actually what the catalog says it is? Usually it is, but there were a few cases where it wasn't exactly maybe what it said, or we found out that there were texts in there that had not been identified before and we were able to identify them. I should say, by and large, that was not me doing the identifying. That was Nick or Amy or one of the other catalogers. So we were able to take what we had, what we got, and really make it a lot better, a lot richer. So the collection as it is now, that cataloging data is a lot better because for all the work that we put into it. It was many hours of work. And then it had to be checked too. So I call it metadata checking, because this isn't people going back and re-measuring the book or going and looking at the text and saying, is this right? These are things like, is the date formatted correctly, the way it should be? Is the data in the field the right data, or did somebody accidentally shift everything down? And so it's going to be wrong when you put it in. So this is all about getting it right so that you can convert it when it all gets sucked into the box. And you'll see what this looks like in a minute when it gets sort of sucked in. So it's going to work later, because one of the things that we want to do, it's not just about let's digitize the book and put it up and we'll look at it and it's pretty. That's part of it. But a lot of it is, okay, now we have 475 manuscripts, and I want to take all of the information about all of them, and I want to start comparing them by data points. How many big books do we have versus little books? How many early books do we have versus late books? You know, and let's look at the type of books we have. We have books of hours, and we have scientific manuscripts. How do the dates compare for looking at which texts are early and late in the collection? And you can only do that if you give a computer good data. If you give a computer bad data, it's not going to work. So it was very important for us to do this checking to make sure that the formatting of it was good. And then the last step is the data upload. So actually we have the photographs over here, and we've checked to make sure that they're named correctly. And then we have, you know, the spreadsheets over here, and then it all gets sucked into the machine. Somebody had to write that machine. His name is Doug Emery. He is our data, what is he called? I guess data programmer. And he has staff who work for him who do the work. So he writes it, he makes sure it runs, and then he has people, Jesse and now Molly, who actually make sure that everything goes through. So all these people working to get this stuff online. And here's a photo of one of our early meetings, I think. My boss took this picture, and I know because he would be sitting, his name's Will Knoll. He's this very tall, skinny Englishman, and he has a huge personality, and he would be sitting right here, right in the middle of the table. So he got up to take a picture. There's me, and there's everybody else. So not even everybody else, but this was a big meeting, so a lot of people were there. So it gets sucked into the machine, and what comes out the other end of the machine is this website called Open. We talk a lot about Open because we're very proud of it. The tagline is primary digital resources available to everyone. And so what Open is, it's an open website, so anybody can go here. You could go to this link and you could find this. And it's where we put all of the image files and the metadata, the descriptions, everything, a lot of technical information about all these manuscripts. This page on Open is for the Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis project, and so if you go to this page, you can see all 475 manuscripts plus 1,700, however many leaves and cuttings right here. But it's not designed, I mean, you can do that, but it's going to be of limited use because it's not actually for you to come and search and browse in a helpful way. We think of it as a refrigerator. It's a bunch of ingredients. They're well-described ingredients, and they're well-organized. It's a well-organized fridge. But What you have to do is then take those things and make things with them. So another kind of look into our fridge. Here we go a little bit further down. This is still this bibliophilly contents page. Here we're telling you about our image specifications and the processing equipment. So you know exactly the cameras that we use to take the photos, how we did the specs, links to image standards. And then here we start listing the documents. We start with Bryn Mawr, not because Bryn Mawr is the first, which is alphabetical, Bryn Mawr College. MS2, MS3, MS4, and there are 3 options under each one of these. There's Browse, TEI XML, and Data. And I'll show you Browse in a minute, but first we're going to go into Data, because if you go into Data, what you find is this file that ends in tei.xml. That's the manuscript description. That's what the spreadsheet turned into. So everything that we did in the spreadsheet comes out in this XML file. And then this one has 4. Some of them only have 3. Not all of the manuscripts have the extra folder. These are the image files. We have thumbnails, which are little. We have web files, which are, I want to say 1,800 pixels high. Is that right? They're pretty big, but they're designed for web display. They're JPEGs. The master files are huge TIFF files, and you could use them in a book. You could make a print facsimile. I don't know if any of you are in Jennifer's class, but I know some of you have looked at these print facsimiles. You could make a print facsimile from these master files. You could print them on a t-shirt. You could put it on a mug. You could do all kinds of things with it. And the reason you can do that is because we have licensed we haven't licensed them at all. They're in the public domain. All the images are in the public domain, which means you can do whatever you want with them, really. And you don't have to ask permission. Every once in a while, I get emails saying, could I have permission? And I'm like, I can't give you permission because they're public domain. You don't need permission. And it makes people think that's weird, because libraries love to make you pay and ask for permission. It's great, but we don't. So this is a little glimpse inside that TEI XML file, which is it's a format called XML. I don't know how many of you have seen XML, but this is some of that. This is like a major ingredient in anything that we're going to do, because this is what tells us what the manuscript is. Bryn Mawr College, MS2. Here we have our identifiers. Here's a summary where we say this is a mid-14th century French manuscript. Here's what it contains. This is a nice, reader-friendly thing. It's in the text language is Latin. We have the title. We have the author. So this is all of this sort of basic information about the manuscript. If we scroll down, there's more. Keywords. All of our manuscripts have these keywords assigned to them. It's from a list. I never counted to see how many keywords are in the list. There's a lot of them. But everyone gets a handful. And these are really important, because the keywords are really how you find them. If you think about it, I showed you the bibliophilly list on Open, where it's just like a list, just all of them listed, and there's no way to search. You could search for names if you know the title, but that's not really helpful. What you need to do is put them into some kind of system, a kind of interface, where you can search and browse, and we say the keywords are how you're going to do that. So we have keywords for everything. This next section is for the images, because we have manuscripts, we have images. We need to be able to say, this image is folio 1 recto, and this one is folio 1 verso, and this is 2 recto and 2 verso. And so TEI has this section called facsimile, which is where you do that. And so what's happening here is we say the surface is the front cover. So here, and there, of course, we have 3 versions of the front cover, right? Because we have a thumbnail, and we have the web, and we have the TIFF file, and so they're all here. and inside front cover, flyleaf 1, and the links are to those folders. So the master folder has the TIFF file, so if you look at master, and then this code, and then TIFF, and so that's how you go. And every single manuscript is described like this, which means that you can write scripts. You can write one little script. We can say, make me a little book. And how you do that is you go in, you grab the summary, and then you read through and put each one in order, and we know the order because they're here, and then you can make yourself a little book. That's a very simplified version, but it's what this kind of design makes possible. And because we make it available, anybody can do that who wants to. But you don't want to look at this file. You want to look at something prettier. So we, when we put them up, the browse link that was under the manuscript, this is what the browse link looks for. So this is exactly the same information that's in that TEI file. It's just a little easier to read because you don't have to deal with the little pointy brackets. We have the title, we have former owners. We're very interested in who used to own these. We have the call number. If you scroll down a bit more, you get more physical information. So we have foliation. This is just where is the page numbered, basically. So the page numbered is in pencil on the upper right, front recto being the front of the page. So if you go through, you'll see that. There's a collation formula, which is information about how the manuscript is physically put together, how the paper or parchment sheets were laid out and organized. For most people, it's not important, although I'm a big fan of, not of the formulas, but of collation, and I think I'll talk about it later. Support is parchment, usually that's either parchment or paper, a little bit about the binding, so a lot of information. And then further down, table of contents. So in our spreadsheet, there's a form where you put in all of the texts that are in there. This is a book of hours. So this is prayers and services that are part of this book. And we say what folio it starts on there. And then the images, that the facsimile thing, this is just sort of generated from that there. So it's a really easy way to sort of see very briefly a single manuscript. It's helpful. The thing is you have to find the manuscript first, which I already mentioned. This website is not built for searching and browsing, although it has a Google search, so you can do a little Google search. But then you have to know what to search for, which isn't great. So, but we're still in the fridge. This is like a really user-friendly fridge, but we're still in the fridge. Oh, this is just about the licensing. I already mentioned that. The really interesting thing, though, is once you have all of your ingredients in the fridge, you can start making food, making good things. You can make lots of good things. You can take the same ingredients and combine them in different ways to make different meals. So, here's my sandwich. Right, we have the fridge. Now I got the sandwich. Nice BLT. And when we started Bibliophilly, we wanted to kind of start. We didn't want to wait till the very end to do a launch. So as soon as manuscripts started going online, they were starting going onto Open, which was great. But I already mentioned, there's a lot of sort of limitations to that. And so I started looking for a way. Is there a way that we can make it possible for people to actually search and browse right now, so it's a little bit more user-friendly before we have an interface for them? So I discovered this product from the Library of Congress called viewshare. This is a very recent screenshot. You can see March 20th, 2018, it was retired. So even before a year before our project ended, we were unable to keep using viewshare. But I'm going to show it to you anyway, because I feel like it was really valuable for us for a lot of reasons to sort of start playing, and I use the term playing intentionally, to start playing with this data and sort of seeing how we could use it even when we only had a few manuscripts online. So here's a screenshot that I took before viewshare was retired. This was our view, and what we did, you can see up here it says, is the manuscript online? Yes, 49, no, 440. So the idea that was behind this viewer was that if you were interested in seeing the project as it was moving forward, you could come in and you could see the manuscripts that were already digitized, but you could also see what was going to be done later, and you could sort of see what's been photographed but isn't up yet, so you know it's sort of coming. I don't think anyone ever used it that way. If anybody did, maybe someone is watching this video and did and could let me know. But you can see it used the fields that we had in the metadata as a sort of organizing factor. So you could select by repository. Those keywords are here. This is when the date was the manuscript was photographed, because as we were photographing and cataloging the manuscripts, we were actually keeping track of that in our own system. So I just took advantage of the data that we were gathering anyway and put it here. We have language, we have date, and then you can see a little bit here. This is one of the ones that we put on. So then I limited here. These are just the 49 ones at this point that were online. 9 for the Chemical Heritage Foundation, which is now called the Science History Institute. I don't want to get confused. 40 from the Free Library. So early on, the Chemical Heritage ones were the ones that we did first, and then the Free Library after that, you can see. And then this, it looks kind of similar to the view on Open, right? So we have the shelf mark, we know the repository, we have a little image of the front cover, title, summary, and all of this stuff, again, is just pulled from that TEI file. We scroll down, and there's more sort of fun things that they had here. A tag cloud for these manuscripts, the various keywords. Here's the keywords for this one. We can see the languages. So this is a little more valuable. The look of the thing is the same, but because you have those, the keywords and the other things to, there's a term for it and I'm blanking on it, federated search. It makes it easier to find things. That was the great advantage of this, is you can actually find things as opposed to just looking in the open. We also had different views. Even at this point, I was experimenting with a few different views. The thing is, viewshare was really only for browsing and searching, and so we had to make the views and put them somewhere else. So we have a page, and I'll show you this in a sec. We had a page turning interface, which is sort of what you expect. It looks kind of like you're turning pages in a book. We had a link to Open. We had a link to that data folder that we looked at, which just had the image files and that TEI file. And then what I call a collation view. So let's look at these. So the page turning, this is sort of basic. We used the Internet Archive book reader, which is an open source book reader. And I worked with Doug Emery to write a script that sort of made it possible to batch process. So we have all these TEI files, we write a script, we throw it over, and then it comes out with all of these page turners. So once you've found your thing in viewshare, you go to this other website and you can turn the pages of the manuscript. The collation work, I mentioned the collation formula earlier, which is like, talks about how the sheets of parchment are gathered together and sewn together to make the book. So I have a project called VisCall, and it's sort of like a form-based thing where you can take a manuscript and you can say, it has 20 quires, that is 20 sheets that have been stacked together and folded together to make these little booklets. It has 20 of those, and you know, the first one has 12 leaves and all of the other ones have 8 leaves, and that's how the manuscript is put together. And then you can, here's a picture of what that looks like if you're having trouble. I don't know how many of you actually work with manuscripts, so I don't want to assume this knowledge. But this is what it looks like. You've got like little booklets stacked on top of each other, and then they've all been sewn together. This one has been sewn together a few times because you can see holes there too. And so what we're doing with this collation work is describing each one of those and how they relate to each other. And then once you've done that, you can visualize it. So this is a visualization of Lewis E. 90, which is in the Free Library of Philadelphia. It's a book of hours. Choir 1 is 6 leaves, and you can see by the diagram, and this is something that you don't see if you looked at this book in the library. It would not be obvious to you that the first leaf, or folio 1, is attached to folio 6, physically attached to it, because it's the same sheet. It's the same sheet of parchment. And that's what this is doing. It's saying, let's look at the book as a physical object and not just as a collection of text. And so we have these diagram views, but we also have these views over here, what I call a bifolia view. And what this does, because we have this information right in the TEI files, we know which leaves go where. We can write a collation model that also knows which leaves go in which choir, and then we can take those images, and here's 1 verso and 6 recto. So this would be like if you had the book and you took the first choir out, which you shouldn't do, but let's imagine. So you take the first choir out, and then you open it up. There are 6 leaves, so there are 3 sheets of parchment, and you take the top 2 sheets of parchment and you set them aside, and there's 1 and 6, and you can look at it now, and this is what you're going to see. And then you turn it over, and this is what you see, approximately, right? Because you've got this weird gutter thing happening. But I'm okay with that, because it still gives you the sense of sort of what goes where. So this is what we were doing, actually, as part of this additional cataloging work, was making models of each manuscript that we could. Some of them you can't because they're tightly bound, or sometimes it's just really hard to determine a collation. So, but we made models for all of them, and then as part of this viewshare thing, I was able to make these diagrams, and it also pops up, so you get sort of a larger view of that, and you turn it over. So that's sort of one meal that we made, an early meal that we made with these ingredients. The major one, and the one that's up now, is bibliophilly. We call it everything bibliophilly, but now when we say bibliophilly, we're talking about this interface. This is the interface that we have now. And it uses exactly the same ingredients. We're taking the same data in, but the technology is more robust than that. So the other one, viewshare, was sort of an experiment that the Library of Congress had, and then I was sort of messing around and playing and making these other visualizations. But this was one we sat down with a programmer, a developer, who made it for us. And so this is a lot more user-friendly now. So we can go in to bibliophilly, and these are the same keywords, right, that we had before. We can say, I want books of hours, I want 15th century books of hours. There are 73 of them. And this is just a little nicer. You can see very easily. Here's our thumbnail, the title, what library it's in, a little bit of information about it. And then we're going to take a look inside, and it has everything you expect. So there's a page turner there. There's a drop down where you can see all of the contents and decorations. So if you're really interested in the short hours of the cross, you can go right there, and that's great. And then, if I'm not mistaken, yes, so the next icon in, I don't know if you can see that, it looks like a little stack of things. What it looks like is a bunch of choirs stuck together. We were able to integrate the data from the collation models into this interface. As far as I know, this is pretty original. There's maybe one other library that's done something like this. So what this is doing, very quickly, is each choir has a little diagram there, and it's, I don't know if you can see that. Can you guys see that? It's not really great. So you can see immediately there are 21 quires in this manuscript. You can see immediately the first one has 12 leaves, or 6 bifolia. Most of the other ones have 8. Quire 7 has 4 leaves. Quire 11 has 6. Quire 14 has 4. And quire 21 has 4. So immediately, I'm like, there's something interesting about those quires. Why are those quires shorter than the other quires, which are pretty regular? It also tells me, I'm pretty sure this is, I know it's a book of hours because it says books of hours, but having a manuscript that begins with 12 leaves is a pretty good sign that it's a book of hours, because books of hours start with calendars, and a calendar has a leaf for each month, and there are 12 months in the year, so there we go. So even just having a collation will tell you things about the manuscript and tell you where you might want to start looking. It's got the same kind of view too as the one that I did, but it's more sophisticated. So here we still have the bifolia, 70 and 77, 72, 75, 71, 76, 73, 74, and then we have the bifolia again. And I've been walking back and forth. I've got this clicker. Is this on? Is it working? Or I'll just do that, okay. So, and then again, we've got our bifolia. In this case, it's 77 verso and 70 recto. So another view that you would never see, but it's actually it's like part of the interface, unlike the viewshare where you had to like keep clicking over, and this is all integrated. So that's another meal. That's our main meal now, and we've invested a lot in it. But we also recognize that there will be other ones, and because of the way that we set up our data, the way we described it, it makes it really easy. There are a lot of horror stories about libraries that sort of put their data, we call them black boxes. You sort of put it in the black box, and then you're stuck in the black box, and we really didn't want that to happen. So that's why we've done it this way. We also put them all in the Internet Archive, archive.org. And the nice thing about this is it sort of helps us get it to another audience. Again, it's all the same data. So to get it in to the Internet Archive, I had to make, I wrote a script that pulled out all of the relevant information from those TEI files and put it in a spreadsheet in the format that Internet Archive wants, because they want a specific format. And then they took it all, and so I think they're pretty much all there. Maybe we need to do another one because we're 10 off. So the great thing about, well, there's a few great things. So you put it in the Internet Archive. You've got the book reader again, sort of the page turner there. But the really exciting thing for me, as a curator who wants to get these out, is that as soon as they get into the Internet Archive, they have a huge system behind it. And they generate a lot of different options. So over here on the right, there's a PDF. People were always asking me for PDFs, and it's really hard actually to make batch create PDFs out of manuscript images, but you put it in Internet Archive and they just do it for you, and then everybody can get it. PDF with text, you can just download the page images. Full text EPUB, if you want to download it and use it on your Kindle, you could do that, which is really great. A lot of people are looking at these. We've had people make comments on them. It's really lovely. And then the other thing that happened when we did this that I didn't even know about is it turns out that the Internet Archive has been sort of experimenting with this technology called IIIF. Has anyone in this room heard of IIIF? I know Bill has, so a few people. So IIIF stands for International Image interoperability framework. And it basically means that you can, if images are served via IIIF, it makes it easier for you to view them alongside other things that are served via IIIF. That's the interoperability part. So normally, if I have a manuscript at Penn and there's a manuscript at the British Library that is similar and I want to compare them, I have to go to the Penn's website, find it, open it in a browser, put it so it covers half my screen, right? Go to the British Library, find it, make it so it covers half my screen. If it's a Penn manuscript, I can download the images, so maybe that's helpful. I can do it on my computer. British Library, you can't, so that's not going to help. So it can be really difficult. IIIF makes it possible for you to have a single browser. This is a tool called Mirador. And on the left is the Susanna Hours, which is at the Philadelphia Art Museum. Sorry, I did this earlier. Philadelphia Museum of Art. This is a Book of Hours, Use of Paris. The one on the right is from the Bodleian Library. It is also a Book of Hours, Use of Paris. The images for this manuscript, as they're showing in the browser, live somewhere on the Internet Archive servers. So the Internet Archive has those images. The image over here is on the Bodleian Library servers. So they're physically distinct, but because they're both used via IIIF, I can put them together, I can view them together, I can scroll with them independently, and it's really exciting. For someone who studies manuscripts, it's just really valuable. And we had been wanting to get our manuscripts into IIIF. It was something that we really wanted to do, and we have a repository at Penn that is IIIF compliant, but the upload is very slow. So I think we have 10 manuscripts in there right now. So as soon as we put them into IIIF, or sorry, as soon as we put them into the Internet Archive, I found out Ben Albritton at Stanford sent me a tweet and said, oh my gosh, they're IIIF compliant now. And I was like, I had no idea, and I really didn't. And so there they are, so that's great. Another little meal, like a side dish, that's a big side dish that I didn't even know we were gonna get, just because we were able to move the data around so easily. So that's where bibliophily is right now. We are still finding manuscripts in Philadelphia that aren't part of the project and adding them to it, so it will sort of continue to grow. If you go to the bibliophily site, the Penn manuscripts are already in there too, so it's not just 475. It's some thousand something of manuscripts. So it's really exciting, and there are other collections that are going to be coming on, but I don't know if I can say them publicly yet, so I won't. But it's going to keep growing, and it's really exciting. But the thing that's on my mind immediately is the next part of my talk, and I know that I'm just going to run through this real fast because I know we don't have a lot of time. Sorry, I love talking about bibliophily, it's just so cool. Is that we have 2 exhibits actually that are coming in next year. I'll also mention this one first. The curator is Nick Herman. He is my colleague at Penn. He's the Sims curator of manuscripts. He did a lot of the cataloging work on bibliophily. He is curating an exhibition from May through July at Penn, Discoveries in Renaissance Manuscripts Made Through the Bibliophily Project. And you know what, these dates are wrong. I'm not sure exactly when that is. And so that's going to be a very scholarly exhibition, specifically about things that we discovered about these manuscripts as we were working on them and putting them into bibliophily. The other one is one that I'm going to be curating at the Free Library. So this is going to be a public exhibition aimed at the sort of broad community of Philadelphia, which is really exciting and also scary, honestly. But I'm really excited about it. And that is this one, Reflections, Modern Mirrors of Medieval Life, and the dates are there. So if you happen to be in Philly between March 16th and July 25th, give me a call, and I will give you a walkthrough of the exhibition because I'm really excited about it. And what I wanted to do, what I'm hoping to do with it, is to do several things. I want to celebrate the project, so feature the manuscripts. I want to introduce medieval manuscripts to the general public in a way that is fun and educational. So I don't want it to be a slog. I don't want to be, oh gosh, Latin, you know, but make it more interesting. And the way that I wanted to do that is to focus on 5 themes and have a collection of, you know, have a few manuscripts for each theme, and then encourage people to think about how that theme influences their own lives in some way. So the themes are religion, labor, the natural world, law and justice, and family. These are very broad, but they're also things, you know, most of us have families, and some of us don't. And that, you know, either one of those, like, that's going to influence how you are, and it's the same in the Middle Ages. You know, how were families conceived of in the Middle Ages? What was the role of genealogy? And how is it different today? Like today, you can take a DNA test. Okay, they didn't have DNA tests back then. How did they think about it? And the aim of this is to really, instead of being like, those people who lived 1,000 years ago were really weird, it's more like, no, well, maybe they were. We're also weird though, right? And we still have the same kinds of concerns, and how can we think about this? So how do I want to do this? Of course, manuscripts, beautiful manuscripts, weird manuscripts, all of this. Each theme is going to have a little, either a popular culture hook or something like that, so DNA analysis, or my favorite Star Wars manuscripts for the natural world. There's a film called the Luttrell Psalter film, which is basically a fan movie about the Luttrell Psalter. It like recreates scenes from this 14th century English Psalter, and so we'll have that as part of the gallery. Hopefully we'll do some digital supplements, and then we'll have a lot of related events there. So I think I'm going to stop there. I do have a lot more, but I think that's a good place to stop. And so thank you very much. We can now discuss, I think, a little bit bibliophily or the exhibit or anything else you'd like. Thank you.